And good morning. You're sailing the very unfriendly seas with Tironan. Yes, we're doing something different today. As some of you may know, the split of the U.S. cruiser line has taken place. And as some of you also know, I am a refugee from World Warships. And I wanted to try out the Cleveland, which was actually a being
Action
built
stations.
alongside the Baltimore.
Good luck, everyone.
And have a captain to retrain. So I thought I'd do this today. So we are now moving up to flank speed and maneuvering for C, where I expect we will find a battle very quickly. Uh, the changes. Well, we now have surveillance radar and hydroacoustics and the standard Great American Anti-Aircraft. Um, Despite the fact that these ships actually had considerable amounts of armor for their classes, they are not what one would consider anything but a glass hammer.
Enemy cruiser detected.
Yeah, it was just a frustration shot. Keep hoping I'll get a sight on this fellow, and I have. We're switching to armor piercing. And we have everything in the world coming at us. Relatively fast reload time on these. And he's showing me his side. I'm going to try to angle so I can get and that's the end of that fellow. Nice shot on him. And that's the
Our
end of
team has
that.
taken the lead.
We're fighting bots because I am just trying to get my captain up. And we'll do some later shots of actually fighting opponents, which are human opponents, which are much tougher. But we need to go ahead and capture that area while we can. We have a Bismarck over here, of all things, coming in. We need to switch over to high explosive, try to set the fellow on fire. First round's out. I hope I'm getting some help here because I'm in trouble. This is not where you want to see a switching to AP because we've got a good area to hit here.
The ship is on fire!
Yes, I'm sure it
Don't
is.
fire at your allies.
Problem solved, sir. The ship is on fire!
It's this time that you will really regret the fact that there are no
Enemy battleship detected.
torpedoes on U.S. cruisers. And I survived that. How that happened, I'll never know.
Our team has taken the lead.
Okay, so hopefully we're still on fire and we may just burn out here. Now, we saved it. All right. That North Carolina is out of my range. All right, 62073, 132 target hits. Set the Bismarck on fire twice. We defended 2 of the capture points and 15 target hits. What the heck is that? Oh, with his secondary batteries. Yes, in other words, I got way too close. When I get this guy to 50,000, he comes up to full effect. Let's look at the captain slots on this. This is a 13-point captain. The original Cleveland commander. And all these lovely skills that I've got are not in effect until I do. That's why I'm over here just grinding this thing out. And that's, but I'll give you a good idea of what the ship is capable of and what its weaknesses are. The Bismarck was a crummy shot. It was a robot and should have taken me out. I did not see him until he came around that island when I was way too close. And we're going to the loop map. And we actually have a destroyer to work against. We actually have hydroacoustics and radar, which gives us some nice capabilities against destroyers. It also gives us the complication of having to work against being spotted and torpedoes. That Shimakaze in particular is a threat.
Action stations.
Anything with the dots in front of them are robots, by the way. And I am going to go get in with the main group. As a battleship, this is a light cruiser. And a particularly cheesecloth armored light cruiser. So I have absolutely no intention of going anywhere solo.
battleship detected. Enemy cruiser detected.
He doesn't look like he's going very fast, does he? And this should be the delete shot unless I overshoot him. Just did. Doesn't make any difference. Okay. We have a Kagero out here. Easy to overshoot, or
Enemy cruiser sighted. Enemy destroyer sighted.
Richelieu. We're going to try to set him on fire multiple times. First fire set. Second fire set. And we're going to switch to AP. He presented me a nice broadside.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
We'll go ahead and fire AP because why not? I'm going to be masked by the Highland. Going to come around, and there's a Cleveland here. We're going to switch back to HE. And the man should be in target now. Changing to AP, he's presenting me with a beautiful broadside. I might as well take advantage of it. No human player would be this dumb.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
We have a Yamato. Yes, my mighty 130-pound AP shells are not particularly valuable here. Trying to set him on fire.
Our team has taken the lead.
Looks like you can go capture the A point and start capturing points. We're in no particular danger here right at the moment. And I'm pretty sure that the aircraft carrier is operating right along that line. Alright, so we're almost in the area to start capturing a base with the Yamato apparently. We're going to go ahead and hit the
Anti-aircraft gun crews are on
anti-aircraft.
full alert.
And we did the normal great job that a American cruiser will do. Let's see where this guy is heading. Yeah, we're actually in a good intercept course.
Anti-aircraft gun crews are on normal alert.
Range on our guns is right around 15 kilometers, 14 point something. We're going to slow down here just a minute. Want to capture the base, and we'll speed right back up to flank. And he's wisely turning around to get it out of my range. The Yamato's got the best guns in the game, but I fire a heck of a lot faster. Alright, hit the targets 105 times, captured one base, and shot down 6 aircraft, and destroyed 2 ships, and I imagine that was the aircraft carrier we set on fire twice. Okay, so we got the Cleveland. And you can see the difference between armor-piercing shells and the high explosives. High explosives set them on fire. Well, can set them on fire, did in this particular case, but the armor-piercing shells really finished them off. Richelieu, we set 2 fires for almost 6,000 points. And did another 6,000 in explosive damage to them. Shimakaze I hit for 2,000 points. Lexington, I'm just going to say Yamato finished him off. And we did some damage to the Yamato. Now, these are easy battles, and they are not indicative of what you will face in a random battle. However, if you think I'm going to take a captain in there with 50% skill sets in a tier 8 battle, you're out of your stinking mind. Just not going to do it. Wouldn't survive long, not a whole lot to learn about. But it gives you a good idea of the capabilities of the light cruiser. Historically, there were more of these cruisers built than any other cruiser class in history. You could certainly make a case that the Arleigh Burkes are in fact cruisers, guided missile cruisers, not destroyers, because they actually weigh more. Fully loaded, they weigh more. But for political reasons, cruisers are expensive, destroyers are cheap. Therefore, you have, $1.5 billion Arleigh Burkes sailing around with all the cruiser capacity that one could want, but they're destroyers. Go figure. But in any case, some 27 of these were built. They had 5-inch armor. That is not reflected in this game. They could slug it out with any other cruiser they got within range. The actual range of the artillery, despite what they want to say here, was 26,000 yards. And they're firing a shell that was 30% heavier than their opponents. A typical 5-inch shell, or 6-inch shell, I should say. 152 is a 6-inch caliber shell. A very common naval caliber. Was 105 pounds. These were firing 130-pound shells. They were no joke. And they could go through 5 inches of armor at 10,000 yards. Give you an idea just how much punch they had. So they are obviously armored against themselves outside of 10,000 yards, which makes them one very tanky cruiser in reality as opposed to the game. The game, they have roles that they assign various national types. So the U.S. has typically had very good anti-aircraft. Historically, U.S. anti-aircraft was by far the best in the game, with no exception. And they had to be, because they were fighting in the Pacific, and we all like to talk about our surface battles, which were relatively rare, but air attack on surface ships was common as dirt, and later kamikazes would turn an already difficult situation into a nightmare. There was a fellow named Norman Freeman who did American or naval anti-aircraft systems, who outlines in very great detail just how big the steps were. Give you an idea of how much in advance U.S. anti-aircraft was over its contemporaries. Was the U.S. fleet operated in conjunction with the British fleet, which was, if the U.S. was number 1, they were number 2, but it was a long step down between 1 and 2, and then there was kind of everybody else. Canadian Navy, of course, was kind of a hybrid. They used British ships, British designs, but they had a lot of confluence with Americans because they're just across the border. You can get stuff pretty easy there. And transportation to the two countries is nothing less than outstanding. You can literally load a rail car in Florida and have it in Canada in 2 days, 3 days at the outside. So, there's a lot more transfer between the two. But when they did anti-aircraft exercises, they would take a towed sleeve and they let the British go first, because if they passed in front of an American ship, there wouldn't be a sleeve to shoot at. There was always complaints in the Navy that they weren't getting enough practice with their AA guns, and they had a right to say that, but in comparison to other navies, their anti-aircraft practice was orders of magnitude better than available to anybody else, because they had drones, and those drones could simulate dive bombers, they could simulate kamikaze aircraft, they could simulate torpedo runs, and they would just use obsolete aircraft, load them up with the right gear, and fly them out there. And they had lots and lots of obsolete aircraft to use for that, and purpose-built aircraft as well. It allowed them to do an outstanding evaluation of how effective their guns were. So when you see guns actually deployed on U.S. ships in World War II, they were put there because they worked, and they absolutely knew how to use them. By the end of the war, almost every one of them had some sort of director. Now, on things like the 20 millimeters, sorry, I'm trying to get you a little close, not run the carousel here. That's a 40 millimeter gun, but even the 20 millimeters would have a gyro gun sight on them. And to give you an idea how seriously they took it, because they were effectively working against a guided missile environment. Now, the guidance was by a human, and you can make all the arguments you want, but the effect was the same. And so the U.S. walked into the Cold War with a very, very good idea of exactly what was going to be required for these. And a couple of these ships were actually changed into missile cruisers, anti-aircraft missile cruisers. When I was sailing in the Kuntz, right across from me was one of them, and I believe it was the Boston, but I may be wrong, working off a very old memory. And that thing was so massive compared to us. It was twice our size, or twice our displacement. These, we used to call them, slab-sided monster. It was so big. And the distance between here and the bridge they actually had an elevator that the captain and command staff could use, because these were often used in that capability. So for me, sailing one of these things in World of Warships is a blast from the past. Listen, I do appreciate you spending some time with me today. We'll have some of these later when I get this captain gone up. We've already got him about a little over halfway, and when I get him up, we'll get him into some real battles, and you can see just the limitations of the cruiser as well. You have to be extremely cagey to play this. You have to you'll be able to notice me using islands to hide behind and bombarding behind the islands. In an actual gameplay, I would have stopped and use that island protection for all I was worth until I was forced to move, or I was out of targets. And you can get away with being a lot more aggressive against the bots because they're dumb as hell, but still a lot of fun to be back at World of Warships and enjoying these. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you for sailing the very unfriendly seas with Tironan, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.